Apologize for the tardiness. Welcome to the Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority Special Meeting Agenda. Today is a special meeting. Today is Wednesday, January the 3rd, 5 o'clock p.m. City Clerk, if you'd like to tell us, take note of our attendance, please.
Yes. It's noted Councilmember Escobar and Councilmember Real are not present. All others present.
Would we be expecting them a little later? Do you know?
I do not know.
You don't
Did
know?
not
Okay.
advise.
Thank you very much. We are not going to have anything other than one item on today. And so today will be, if there's anybody out there in the public that'd like to talk about or add anything to the conversation, we will only take items with regard to this special meeting agenda. We'll go ahead then, I guess, do Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Felix, would you lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. To continue on then, I'll need a approval of the agenda.
I'll make that approval, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge.
Second.
First by Mr. Hodge, second by Mr. Pacheco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Moving on to public comments then. I don't think we have any public comments, or do we? City Clerk? No, I'll go ahead and read this anyway if any of you would like to do so. There's still a little time. Public comments and public appearances. Note, not to exceed 3 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the City Council on the special agenda items only. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name and place of residence for the record. While the members of the public are encouraged to participate in it is unlawful to disturb or delay the council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. The City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. Please direct your questions and comments to the City Council. So today, again, we only have one item, and today we are gathered to discuss item number 1. Go ahead and read that to you, and I believe that today, being that it is a special item, and we have a lot going on as far as people that are in attendance to maybe chime in, we'll probably start with some comments from you, City Manager, Mr. Dale, and then kind of tell us. So I'll go ahead and read this. Number 1 item, the reason we're here is the discussion and the potential action on City of Calexico / Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District Agreement for emergency medical ambulance services for the City of Calexico and formation of a joint oversight entity.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, we met with subcommittee with yourself and Councilman Pacheco and members of the Heffernan Memorial District last week. Last week already?
Before the holiday.
Friday.
Seems like 2 weeks ago already, but and in that meeting, it was discussed about Heffernan possibly funding the ambulance services, which is transport services and pre-medical care. And essentially what we came up with was the potential of forming a joint oversight committee, and where Heffernan would have some oversight into how the funds are spent for the ambulance services on an annual basis. And we're looking for the council to give us direction on how to proceed and what the pleasure of the council is on this matter.
Okay. Mr. Pacheco, you want to chime in a little bit?
If I recall, they being Heffernan, were willing to meet on a monthly basis and hearing reports from staff, like from Chief and his personnel, to hear about any monthly updates on what was happening with money, with job formation, with training, with lack of money, or informational stuff that they would require. And once they were put up to speed on what happened or has occurred during that month, they would chime in and offer some recommendations and suggestions. But it was up to them, I believe, to give us a monthly stipend as we progress through the year. I think that was more or less what we decided on.
There's still a little bit more, I guess, to add in so that the public could be a little more aware of
We
the...
could ask Mr. Rivera to come
Yeah,
up
okay, there you go.
if you'd like to chime in.
What ended up happening is that we had met in a combination meeting, the full Heffernan Board and the full City Council, and we decided to do a subcommittee, and that really worked well, because it gave us an opportunity to go very deep into the conversations and the details. Because obviously, in making these kinds of arrangements, we need to know a lot more of the details of how these types of operations, especially the details on the program itself, which was something that we identified in that conversation, that we're talking about a program because the city of Calexico is only one city. We're both operating for the same exact services and needs of the community. So we look at this as trying to ensure that our program stays intact. We don't have to close any fire departments or anything like that, because we don't have a hospital, and our hospital is our hospital on wheels, which is our ambulance services. So I really do appreciate that, and I really did thank the council for allowing us to do it that way, because there was no other way to talk about something so important that had so many details to understand other than with the subcommittee. So I thought that was a really successful meeting and great conversation too. And thank you, Mr. Rivera, you were there too, so your turn.
Did you have any questions, or did you want any comments on behalf of Heffernan Memorial? Because I think you've covered it. I believe that Heffernan is anticipating your approval of entering into an agreement with Heffernan for the provision of the ambulance services dash paramedic, EMT, and fire station number 2. Having those services remain status quo. I know that budgetarily you have to make some decisions by the middle of this month. The fiscal year is halfway done, and so you have to take some action. Heffernan tonight is going to await your action as to whether or not you want to enter into an agreement and form a oversight committee as outlined by Mr. Pacheco and the mayor and the city manager. I believe that Heffernan is willing to make the commitment for the $700,000 that is required under your budgetary deficit for the fire department. I believe Heffernan might authorize that tonight and at least give you that assurance that pending the development of a written agreement between the city and Heffernan for the oversight committee and the management of the funds, which Heffernan wishes to allocate on a pro rata basis over the remaining 6 months of the fiscal year. On one caveat, or several caveats, number one, that we meet monthly, we oversee some of the expenses that the chief has actually outlined in his budget status reports, monthly budget status reports. Apart from that, the district is insistent that there be a fast tracking of the possible rate increase for ambulance services. During our meetings, we were provided with documentation from your collection entity showing various municipalities in Southern California which have a substantially higher rate for ambulance services per call, which is reimbursable by the appropriate insurance, Medicare, Medi-Cal authorities. And the city of Calexico is unfortunately very, very, very low, and Heffernan wishes that the city, not necessarily today, but as a contingent matter for the designation of funding for the balance of the fiscal year in the amount of $700,000, is that you fast track that. Obviously, we know that you have to go through several procedures in order to determine whether or not a rate increase is appropriate or not, and you have to give the public the opportunity to be heard prior to adopting those rate increases. But Heffernan wishes that you fast track that, because there has been a drain of available funding over the years and it doesn't matter why, that's just a fact. That's what has occurred. The other thing is that Heffernan wishes to continue discussing with the city through this oversight committee other areas where Heffernan might be able to help the city in some fashion. Coincidentally, in reviewing some documentation, we noticed that, if you recall, there was approximately about a year and a half ago, there was a very large fire over here in the commercial district on Cesar Chavez Boulevard. As a result of that fire, Heffernan became aware that there was a real need for safety equipment, for turnouts, for protective gear for the firefighters. And Heffernan made a commitment in the approximate amount of about $240,000 during that period of time. So historically, Heffernan has always helped with the city of Calexico's fire department, emergency ambulance services, and other services. So in that same vein, I think Heffernan wishes to continue providing a hand, because we're all providing medical services for this community, and we want to continue doing that. That's one of the priorities that Heffernan has. So those are the only two provisos that Heffernan is going to insist, and obviously, your council and myself are going to work something out that's going to be presented to you before anything goes into effect. But what I've tried to urge Heffernan to do is to make a financial commitment to you so that you have that firmly in hand by your deadline of January 24th. And hopefully, upon signature of that agreement, we can then issue a 1/6 of the $700,000 amount that's being requested by the city. So that's the idea. Obviously, I can't foretell what's going to happen in about 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but hopefully Heffernan will take that action, and if it does, then we'll come back next Wednesday, hopefully with something more formal in writing that we can at least take a look at, and we can continue the cooperation that's necessary for the citizens to receive these services.
Madam Mayor.
By your personnel.
I have a comment. Okay. I want to congratulate the subcommittees on both sides for your hard work and diligence. And based on the information that I understand has been communicated to me, I wholeheartedly thank the Heffernan Board and wholeheartedly want to collaborate with you. I think that we'll both benefit from it. The only question I have is, or I just want to make sure, where's the positioning of LAFCO right now? How do they feel? What have they stipulated, or so forth?
There's been a lot of confusion on the part of the general public and even specific public officials as to LAFCO's role currently concerning Heffernan. As you remember, a year and a half ago, LAFCO authorized and approved the 5-year annual service area plan for Heffernan. Approved it, 5-0. What they did was they requested annual submittals of updates on the programs that Heffernan has been involved in that year. We prepared our annual report to LAFCO back in May. We filed it in May. They were going to hear it at the end of May, right after Memorial Day. Mm-hmm. Is it Memorial Day in May? No. After Memorial Day, but they canceled the meeting. LAFCO canceled the meeting for whatever reason. So they calendared 2 months later. They canceled that meeting. They calendared 2 months after that. They canceled that meeting. And our report is just sitting there, fully completed, giving them a full background as to what we've been doing for the past year since we were last before them. So they keep canceling meetings, and we've never had a hearing on the review of our program. Unfortunately, there was this aberration that occurred, and it occurred in La Jolla. And that aberration took over a life of its own, and it had nothing to do with the reason we're before LAFCO. We're before LAFCO because they want to review what we have been doing for the past year, as of May of 2017, but we've never had a chance to present them to them. So in other words, our position with LAFCO is that we have a 5-year approval. We're into the 5-year service area plan, a year and a half. Come June, we'll be in it 2 years. To be blunt about it, there is no revocation, no petition for the disorganization or doing away of Heffernan. That's just not the case. The hysteria that is generated by whomever is just false. I mean, we're on solid ground, in my opinion, and in the opinion, I believe, of Mr. Huberger and members of the LAFCO board. They're all friends of ours. We all know them, and they all are very, very supportive. So, if anything, try to divorce those type of rumors from what the citizens of Calexico at this juncture really need, and that is the providing of medical services through your fire department, your paramedics, and your EMTs. They're doing a great job. We need them. Heffernan wants to help. Historically, we have helped.
And
So-
LAFCO supports that.
I beg your pardon?
LAFCO supports that, what we're trying to do.
LAFCO has the recognition that according to Heffernan's duties under Health and Safety Code 3200, et cetera, there is a specific authorization for Heffernan to provide ambulance services.
Very good.
And that we can join agreements with other entities like the city of Calexico in order to provide those services. State law authorizes us to do this. LAFCO has to follow state law. I'm telling you, this aberration had nothing to do with our responsibilities in trying to work with the city and provide these medical services.
The hiccup.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rivera.
Excuse me, I have a question. City manager, I believe that I was CC'd on a email from Mr. Huberger, who specifically in that email said that they were looking at possibly disbanding Heffernan. I received that email not too long ago. So this is very conflicting, what's being said right now with the email that I got. And I don't know if the rest of the council got it, or our city attorney, but he did say in that email that they were looking at that possibility. They actually already hired a consultant who gave them a list of exactly or what could be done with Heffernan as far as being given to the county, to the city, to Pioneers Memorial. I saw the study that consultant did. So this is very conflicting what I'm hearing now, that LAFCO is completely for this. And so I don't know why there's not a representative here from them, or why we're not taking them into consideration. And I know that I was CC'd along with the city manager on that email as far as them possibly
Could the council have a
disbanding
little
that.
clarification, city manager, what letter he's discussing? Who was the sender and what was the content? Because we don't have that here.
It was Huberger and our city manager.
Well,
The other one.
I haven't
No.
seen an email.
David Dale.
Mr. Rial, I haven't seen an email.
I can, I don't know.
What I do know
But, you
is,
know,
it
may I interject at this point, though?
So when Huberger, or I think he's the chair of the board, or I don't know what he is at the board, but when you have a person from the board saying that, and you come and give a completely different story, that's very confusing to myself, and it should be confusing to everybody. But again, this is just what I've seen, the
Mr.
email
Rial?
that I received, and.
Mr. Rial, what you're saying is exactly what occurred approximately 2 years ago. There,
This email, we just got it.
okay. Well, approximately 2 years ago, there was a consultant, and all of the things that you said were in the recommendation that the consultant made at that time. And after that, there was the approval of the 5-year service area plan. Now, if you say something came out within the past 30 days, 45 days, then it's odd that Heffernan has not received something like that. I mean, if it wasn't for you advising us right now, we would have had no knowledge of that. Since I review most of LAFCO's agendas, in the past year and a half, there hasn't been any action on LAFCO's agendas to hire a consultant to determine whether or not Heffernan is going to be disorganized. There just hasn't been any action along that line. Speaking within the past 30 days with Mr. Huberger, he didn't once in the telephone conversation I had with him mention this at all. So I find it unusual, but nonetheless, if you saw it and it's dated within the 2017, late December, late November, so be it.
Yeah, the study was conducted in 2015, but the email was, I guess within the last 30, 45 days.
The study was repudiated by LAFCO.
What study?
The consultant repudiated his own recommendation at the public hearing, anyway, that's all I can say, but obviously, for your information, if that action were to be contemplated by LAFCO, we would fight them tooth and nail.
That's
Because
right.
there's no basis for a disorganization. We're a functioning, financially stable organization that's been providing services. Now, LAFCO or Mr. Huberger might not agree on some policy decisions, but policy decisions are very, very different. A lot of people don't agree with some of the decisions you make, but you're the policymakers. So apart from that, I have no idea whether Mr. Huberger issued that email. He certainly didn't tell me when I was speaking to him on the phone, Mr. Rivera, we're going to petition to dissolve LAFCO. Because I asked him point blank, what's the purpose of the meeting? Which we were going to have in December, the end of December, which got again postponed till the end of January. And he said, no, I'm just going to bring the board, the LAFCO board, up to date as to what you've been doing. So that's what he told me directly, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera.
Again, I'm just relaying the information. That's it.
That's fine.
Could we just kind of cover a little bit, I guess, I'm sorry you got here a little bit late, but the conversation was about the subcommittee that we had formed and the discussion that went on, which was a very positive conversation. But in that conversation also, both entities discovered and had to recognize a couple of things in the city of Calexico. One of those, of course, is the fact that we probably will never have a hospital. Okay? Whoever says that that's a possibility just doesn't understand business, because as far as being viable for any investor to open up a business in Calexico, a hospital in Calexico and expect that that's going to be a successful project, it's just not. So that's not a possibility. We all understood that. And as leaders of the city and in that smaller group, there was better opportunity for more conversation about what's coming to Calexico and why is it that it's much more important to think outside of the box, not necessarily accept what others want to do to us as far as other LAFCOs or that. It's more what does this community needs to do? Because in this community right now, we're expecting right now, I believe, a new home project and housing project. I said 400, but how many houses are we expecting?
Over the years, it's been about 600.
About 600 coming up here real quick. That means Calexico will grow by 600 more houses very soon, which means we don't want to think about even allowing anybody to tell us we can't do this. We need to make sure that we have a plan to be able to ensure that we're keeping our ambulance service in this city, because it is even more important right now also with the new port of entry coming up. So the new port of entry is also a big problem for us, because when that all has been happening, you have a line that cuts Calexico in half. So we have issues as a unique position on the border for many different reasons on how it affects us. So the fact that someone else is a threat to what we need to provide to our community, yes, we were going to push really hard to make sure we take care of ourselves. Because when this community voted for Heffernan to exist, they allowed for themselves to be taxed. They knew they didn't have a hospital, so they accepted by voting to tax ourselves so that they could have those additional services in place of a hospital. Number two, then also Measure H was taxed so that the city also could have monies for police and fire, which is exactly what we're doing as well. So this city has been taxed twice because we know we are unique. We know we don't have the same things that other cities have, but yet we have the impact of taking care of a border. The needs that border has a lot of ambulance calls, which we also looked at those statistics. So in our conversation in this subcommittee was about the core of really what we're trying to do here. It's not about somebody else trying to stop us. It's about us making sure we're going to get this done. And so, yes, go ahead.
And the good thing is they're willing to share that responsibility
Right.
with us and being a partner with the city to make sure that they're providing and assisting us with those medical needs that we need.
Yeah.
And it was a very positive meeting, and
Collaboration.
they're willing to work with us, and
I think also what helped is the fact that you have a plan, that we have, the city has a plan, and that it's actually something that you can actually see and say, okay, there's 3 years here that we're going to work on. There's some discovered novelties in our financial picture, which is additional revenues that were discovered we can bill, that will possibly, see if all goes well.
Assist.
Right, that it's going to increase your revenues like it should. So the fact that we also talked about taking this in increments and slowly working with each other, where it's not just a decision today that's going to affect us for the next 3 years. It's a plan. And it's a plan that will allow us to revisit on a constant basis that if Heffernan has some new things going on and they're going to start to move towards maybe wanting to make adjustments, they will do so, and the city as well. And if the city gets to the point where they can actually, because of the new revenue discoveries, become self-sufficient, we'll have that conversation at that time as well. Is that right, Chief?
that's correct.
Would you like to chime in on anything right now, Chief, before we? So again, it was a really good conversation. I know that LAFCO has been a thorn in everyone's side because everyone worries about other people always watching us, which is true. But this time around, this second time we got to do this, it was a different way. We got smarter about it, and you walked in with a plan. And I think that that's what everybody wants around here is a plan. And it's very viable. The fact that Mr. Rivera was there ready to go to make it happen, he came up with the idea about a JPA, which is perfect. It's all legal, it's all set in stone, and it's all, not set in stone as far as the decisions, but the arrangements is of us continuing to collaborate. And I think that anyone would be proud of that. Anyone else? Okay, call for the question, Mr. Pacheco. Let me go ahead and read the item one more time. So the discussion is, the discussion and a potential action item on the City of Calexico, Heffernan, forming a JPA. So it is a formation of a joint oversight entity. So I would need to have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second,
Would you like to put any details into your motion, Mr. Hodge?
No, just repeating what you just said.
So then, the
Who would be
motion,
the board on the JPA?
we don't know yet. They're going to come up with the,
We're in planning stages.
probably be 2 members.
And there would be somebody from LAFCO there as well.
I don't know.
what do you think, Mr. Rivera? Do you think that would be good if we would have somebody from JPA, on the JPA from LAFCO visit? That would make sense? Okay, that's, we can also continue to revisit that as well. Okay, good. We okay? Any more questions? Okay, so the issue then at this moment is, I need your vote then to allow for the formation of a joint oversight entity between the City of Calexico and the Heffernan Memorial District. Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
motion by Mr. Hodge, second by Mr. Pacheco. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I have
Against? None.
one question.
I'm sorry, real quick, motion passed again.
As far as is there a reason why this meeting couldn't wait to the regular meeting? Was this time sensitive?
It is.
Oh.
Yeah. We're trying to get this done by January 24th, which is our 6th month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so.
Thank you.
Without no other business to conduct, this
Make
meeting is
a
adjourned.
motion that we adjourn.
So moved.